Okay, everybody, we have to get ourselves in the right state of mind for learning. Before you can learn, you have to be in the right state of mind. To be the most optimal way of learning is to be able to be relaxed and calm, right? You have to have a calmness to you, and you have to have an alertness to you at the same time. And we find that the way we do that is by first centering ourselves in ourselves, getting ourselves connected to the breathing, which is your connection with the Creator. Of course, He's breathing you, Ne Hashem Nishmas Adam. The breathing of the Creator is, the light of the Creator rather, is the breathing of a person. So when you take a couple of minutes to just get to yourself, become a mensch, connected to yourself, then you'll be able to learn more easily. Your mind will be like a mental magnet that will pull in everything that's important, and it will stay with you more permanently. You'll be able to store it in your memory much more easily, much more effortlessly. You know, you see little kids sitting there and they're trying to learn for the first time how to read and write. And in the beginning, they're straining. You know, you see some kids, they're tensing their muscles and they're, so much effort. It's ma'akev learning. The best learners are the people that just let go and trust with Emuna that you have a good brain, that you're going to be able to pick up everything that you need, and that you're going to be able to access it later at another time when you need it most. This is the yesod of learning. You know, years ago when I began to develop what Emuna therapy, Emuna coaching, I asked myself, well, what is the best way that people learn? And I thought to myself, you know, when we learned the best is when we were young. When we were kids, you just learned automatically all kinds of new skills and things that you're using still today. You don't remember how you learned how to ride a bike, and you don't remember how you learned how to read and write. But you learned those things and they became automatic skills that you're using today. It's the same thing with learning about Emuna. We have to be able to be in an optimal state. The way we get in an optimal state is we get in contact with the breathing and we get in contact with the present moment. You have to be right here, present, here and now. Being present means being out of my head. Because if a person's in his head and he's going around and around in fantasies and imagination, he's not here. He's not present. He's not now. Being in the now means really living and taking residence more in what's going on outside of my head rather than what's going on in my thoughts. You know, the thoughts are oftentimes very, very far from the truth. Hashem is the reality outside ourselves. Let's think of it that way. And the thoughts and the mental images and the self-talk, which is often negative, that's going on inside of our heads, and it's taking us, it's interfering, it's blocking our connection with reality, with hashgacha pratis, with divine providence. So what we work on very routinely, and in a method and we have a method for doing it, is staying out of imagination, staying focused outside, being more external. You know, think of a cat. You know, a cat is very externally oriented. You know, even when they look like they're sleeping, even when they look like they're relaxed and resting, you know, they can kick into gear very quickly. You know, they can hear sounds and notice things that are going on outside themselves because they're focused outside. You know, people that I talk to, people that come in, oftentimes they're in their heads, you know. And after a while they begin to believe all of the things that they're thinking that are so negative and so discouraging. And when you ask them, well, how do you know that's true? And they'll say back, well, how do you know it's not true? And I'll say, well, because those are just your thoughts. Those are just thoughts. Yeah, but I'm thinking them. You see, after a while, they begin to believe that every thought that they're having, everything that passes through their brain, must be 100% true, like it's Taurus Emes from heaven. And that's just not the way it is. Hashem oftentimes has to teach us that He's the reality, not our thoughts, by waking us up, giving us a wake-up call, some kind of a challenge, some kind of test of our Emuna that's going to snap us and wake us up and get us out of our heads and into what's going on around us with the people that are in our lives. And I talk to a lot of young men that are about to get married, and I give them this whole schmooze, about, when you're married and you're sitting with your wife, she's going to know right away if you're not present. There's no hiding, and she's going to know right away you're not listening, right? So we got to learn now, I tell these young people, and it's never too late, learn now how to get out of your mind and try to focus on Hashem, try to focus on other people. We try to emulate the tzaddikim, because the tzaddikim are always thinking about other people. They're not thinking very much at all about what they need or what's going to serve them the most. They're thinking about what you need, what's going to serve you, what's going to serve Hashem, what's going to be better for the world. So we get to this. So this is called opening. We start always, before we do anything important, like today we're about to learn, so we want to be in this optimal state. But this is really an optimal state to be in for everything. First, centering, which means getting rid of the stress, grounding ourselves. Harav. Amen. Grounding ourselves, being calm, and being focused on the out. Then we can open and we can be focused on the outside, on what's going on outside of us. After all, if we're not, we're going to miss all the important cues. We're going to miss all of the things that the messages that Hashem is trying to send us through people around us and events that are going on around us in our lives. So we're talking about centering and opening and automatic learning. And automatic learning is another very important thing. First of all, most of us waste too much energy. Our minds are split in all kinds of different directions, and since we have all this bilbul hadas, our bodies are also going here, going there. We don't know what to do. We don't have yishuv hadas. We don't have a settled mind. But when a person is connected and centered to his real self, and he learns how to really believe in himself, he can believe in Hashem, and his movements become smoother and more automatic. His speech becomes smoother and automatic. His thoughts line up more straight, more clear. Everything is integrated. He's more shalem. He's more whole. The whole system is integrated and working smoothly together. This is automatic learning, which turns into automatic behavior. Automatic behavior doesn't mean that we're just doing everything without thinking, but the thinking also becomes more smooth, more regulated, less interfered with by imagination. So a person feels like he's centered and focused in the present, and he can function, he can talk, he can think, he can listen, he can utilize any tools that he's learning, Emuna tools. Well, now we're going to talk about the various tools that some of the tools that we've been focusing on lately. We'll review them, and we're going to go ahead a little bit. One of the things that we, in terms of being in the present, is that as we've mentioned from the Gemara, Imani kan, hakol kan. Hashem says, if I'm here, everything is here. So that gives us a lot of hope to be here. To be here because when you're here, you can connect with Hashem, and it's automatic, right? All you have to do is think about Him, be aware of Him, want Him And he's there, he's here because he's eagerly waiting. He's always eagerly waiting for you to turn to him, to turn your attention to him, turn your prayers to him. Imani kan hakol kan. It's very, very important that we have this basic relaxation, that we have this basic calmness when we're in contact with Hashem. Because it's not very nice, it's not very respectful to the Creator if I'm going to stand before him and my mind is zerflogen, as they say in Yiddish, all messed up in a million different directions. So I have to be concentrated. Now when you're going to be thinking, first of all, about your relationship with Hashem. Before even your relationship with Hashem, you're going to be thinking, we talk about believing in ourselves. That we can't really have a true belief in Hashem until we first believe in ourselves. That might seem a little bit counterintuitive to some people. But the reasoning is that if you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe that Hashem made you good. If you don't believe that Hashem made you with talents and with abilities, and with the ability, with a certain purpose that you can fulfill, and that he gave you the gifts that you need to be able to fulfill that purpose, then you really don't believe in Hashem. First, you have to look at yourself. You have to understand your greatness. You have to understand your potential. You have to really believe in yourself and believe in your mission and know that you're here to do something really important. That will lead you to belief in Hashem. You're going to only believe in, it's almost like in a mathematical equation. You have to believe, if I believe in myself, not in a arrogant way, but believing in the real me, believing in what I'm capable of, in the abilities that Hashem gave me. And he didn't give me the ability to do everything, but he gave you and I the ability to do something very important. If you believe that, then you're going to come to wonder, well, where did I get that from? Where do you get it from? If you're very brave, or you're very persevering, or you're very wise, or you're very kind and loving, or you're very smart, that's a gift. Where did you get that gift from? By recognizing the greatness of your gift, you can recognize then the greatness of the Creator. Because anyone that really pursues the truth and asks themselves, how did I get this amazing, let's say you have a 200 IQ. Where did you get a 200 IQ from? You didn't do anything to get it. Somebody else only has a 100 IQ, an 80 IQ. Why were they born that way and you were born with a 200 IQ? And you come to realize the Creator. You come to realize that he gave you a 200 IQ because he has something in plan for you that you need a 200 IQ for. The guy that only has an 80 IQ doesn't need another 120 points on an IQ. What he has to do in life, he can do fine with 80. And he may have other things that you don't have. Right? So we have to come to believe in ourselves, to lech lecha, to go to ourselves, which were the first words that Hashem said to Abraham. Lech lecha, go to yourself, know who you are, know your strengths, know your abilities. Yes, we have to know what abilities are that we have that we're stronger at, and we have to know what abilities we have that we're less strong at. And nobody is going to be strong in every area. But if you focus on the ones that you really were given that you're very strong at, you're going to find that automatically your lower strengths are also going to pick up. This is one of the things, positive psychology is very good in this. In this area, they've studied it, the positive psychologists. Right? Positive psychologists study strengths. They want to know what you're good at. What do you have? Not what you don't have so much. Focusing on what you have. Now, your uniqueness, your fingerprints, you're one of a kind. So sometimes one of the things we do to remind us of how unique we are is we look at our hands. And if you look at your hands, you see that your hand, the lines in your hands are not like anyone else's. And your fingerprints, your thumbprints, never ever been anybody like you. So if you look at your hands and you think for a second, wow, I'm unique, then you can realize that you have a unique relationship with the Creator as well. And He wants a relationship with you, right? If you look at your hands and you think about the power in your hands, then you can think about the Emuna that you have. Because we learn from Moses that the Emuna was in his hands. The Emuna was in his hands because he received the Torah with his hands. And another tip that we use is to look at your hands and think of the Torah, because you have two hands and there were two tablets. There were two luchos. And when you look at your hands, you have 10 fingers. There were aseres hadibros. There were 10 commandments. And so we have these tools that we learn, and they become automatic. Again, the automaticity is very important. It's important for people to be able to repeat these things 2 or 3 or 5 times until it becomes rather. And then before you know it, every time you're looking at your hands, it's triggering off this idea about the Torah, about the 10 Commandments, about Moses, about Emuna, about automatic learning, about automatic living, about being in the here and now. Everything that we're learning has to do with associations. Associations are very important. One thing that we associate with another, which is good, which is another which is good, it's like a chain. Think of a chain that's connected by all of the links. So when we use positive psychology and behavioral psychology and cognitive psychology and the scientific understanding of how the mind works, and we apply it to learning about Emuna, spirituality, Torah. We use what science tells us about how memory works to be able to learn and remember and improve our associational memory. So if I think of Emuna, and I look at the hands and I think of Emuna, and I think of Moses, and I think of Moses, I think of being humble. And when I think of being humble, I think that this is part of the purpose of life. This is the seesaw of life. Humility on one end of the seesaw, and on the other end, arrogance. And we want to tilt towards humility, right? So one thing leads us to another, and before you know it, you have all of these positive associations going in your mind. Positive associations leading to positive emotions, making very happy with the way your mind works, very happy that you be able to remember. This is the way you can remember vast amounts of information, by linking it to other information that you have in your brain. So we talked about a very, very basic tool that we use in Emuna coaching, the swap technique, which means when you're in a challenging situation, you need a quick method to be able to swap a non-Emuna way of looking for an Emuna perspective on that situation. And that requires stopping, centering, asking, where is Hashem? Then the answer comes back right away. Hashem is right here with me. Hashem is here, right? And then you look for the positive. Once you have Hashem with you, you feel Him. You can look for Hashem's positive intention in giving you that problem, in quotes. Once either Hashem will then give you some understanding of how your challenging situation is good, or He'll give you at least some understanding that there is good there. You'll be reminded that there is good. And you'll believe that there is good. That even if you don't know what it is right now. So the swap helps us to be able to get to the point where we're going from being like a horse with blinders on, where we can only see the troubled situation or the difficult challenge in our usual way, non-Emuna way, and before the intellect starts kicking in and all the imagination comes in and the fantasies and then my ideas about what I think this means and reading into it, before you know it, I'm judging people and I'm judging myself badly and I'm forgetting about Hashem and wow, off and running far, far, far from the truth. Before that kicks in, to be able to put Emuna there, to get out of the head, get out of the thoughts, and be thinking. You have a structured way of you asking yourself questions, and then you're getting answers from Hashem. Right? That keeps you out of trouble, keeps you out of your mind, which is like going into a bad neighborhood sometimes. Right? So that swap. After you have an alternative, A is an alternative way of looking at the situation, then you get to P and you pray, which at this point we're just saying, thank you, Hashem. Thank you for giving me a different perspective, a more positive perspective. Well, thank you for just reminding me that there is a more positive perspective. And I can use my intellect now to try to figure out what that positive perspective is. I can't use my intellect in the beginning. I have to use Emuna in the beginning. After I get to the point where I have a connection with Hashem, then I can use my intellect. Then your intellect is being enlightened with divine wisdom. Then Hashem is shining light into your mind, and you can trust your mind. Before you have Hashem, you can't trust your own mind. You can't, because as smart as you are, you're going to be flipping around with all kinds of theories that may have nothing to do with real reality. You know, psychologists and psychiatrists are fond of defining psychosis as being detached from reality, you know, out of touch with reality. I laugh when I hear that, because how many of them are in touch with reality? If we say, Ein Od Milvado, which means there's nothing but Hashem, that means Hashem is reality. But if these psychologists and psychiatrists are not connected to Hashem, they're not connected to reality. Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, we were sitting in their sukkah on a Friday night, and she asked me, Dr. Ballin, do you believe in reality therapy? There is something called reality therapy, which I never really understood what it is, since anybody that's not connected to Hashem is not connected to reality. They're connected to their own reality, but that doesn't mean it's reality. So, we have to know the false self, the real self. The false self is based upon all of these ideas that have no connection with the truth, right? Ideas that people come to on their own. When we get into when we access the real self, and you start to really know who you are, and you can only know who you are vis-a-vis the Creator, your Creator, right? Who's willing you to exist, who made you, who knows everything about you, right? Once you start to know who you are, then we can do a technique called the Emuna swish. The Emuna swish technique, I love this one. Here, we have a person see their false self and see their real self as though they're on a screen, right? By this time, the real self has been built up because we're working on that. We're building up who you really are, your real strengths, not all of the nonsense that you were told about yourself by parents, by teachers, and by therapists, unfortunately. So the real self is usually bigger. People see it more bright, more big, more colorful, more vivid. And by now, even before we do the swish, the false self is smaller, dimmer, right? You start to see right away when you put these two selves, so to speak, on the screen, that they don't look different. The facial expressions are different. One is usually a happier face, a calmer face. The other one is a haggard face. It's a stressed out face. It's a depressed face. One dresses differently. The two of them dress differently. They stand differently. They walk differently. These are two personas, two different aspects of self. One real and one nonsense. One checker, false, right? One is really connected to the real ultimate you, the soul, the only real you there is. And the other is a klipa. It's just a covering. It's an outer shell. It's like this. It's the shell of the nut, not the beautiful, delicious nut inside, which is who you are. So we take these two, the real and the false, and we have a person close their eyes, and I say, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to say swish. And when I say swish, what happens is the real self goes across the screen and wipes out the false self. It just knocks it off, you know? Or it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes across, whereas the false self shrinks down smaller and smaller and gets duller and duller until it becomes like a little dot. And there's many different ways in which the swish helps people, all depending upon each person's own creativity. Sometimes, as I said, you might see that false self shrinking down into nothing. Other times, the real self might just blow up the false self or knock it out of a picture completely. Or sometimes it's even incorporated into the big self. It's just sort of engulfed in it and taken over by it. In any case, the swish is done rapidly because the brain really wants to move very quick. And we drill you, we go fast. Swish, do it again. Swish, do it again. Swish, do it again. And what this is doing in the mind is multi-determined. In other words, you're reprogramming the mind on a neurological level, psychoneurological level, and you're also doing something spiritual too, to help your spiritual growth, to get rid of things that are interfering with your true connection to yourself and your true connection to the Creator. So that's the swish. Okay, we're gonna get more into understanding the difference between the false self, the real self. What happens? Why does a person start off? How does the false self develop? Very interesting. A person is born real. Nobody's born false. You're born pure. You come from heaven. You come down to this world. You just learned all the Torah from an angel. You're coming out of you're coming out into this world. You're pure and ready to begin your journey here. But you're growing up in a family where there's already a lot of falseness. Your family members mean well. Nobody's trying to make anybody have problems intentionally, at least not in most cases. But the child really has everything in him that he needs or she needs. Just like, but you need the right environment, you need the right ingredients around you to be able to grow and prosper. So just like an acorn has everything built into it to be able to become a mighty oak tree, you were born with everything in you. Hashem put everything in you to become a healthy, functional person who can reach your tachlis, can reach your mission in life. But if the environment doesn't provide enough love, enough support, enough guidance, enough structure, enough boundaries, enough discipline, then what happens is that the child starts to see that he or she can't really be her real, spontaneous self in this place. That she has to begin to change herself artificially, bend herself to fit in to the family system, which is not healthy. And even some of the best healthy, most healthy families today still rob a person or a child of their natural automatic spontaneity, which is why that the spontaneous and automatic learning is more, it works better when you're young. But as we get older, we age, we become more complicated and we become more alienated from our real selves. And the more alienated we become from our real selves, the more layers of klipas that are forming on the outside of the real self, the more stilted the person is, the more they become an observer of life rather than a participant in life. You're more in the overthinking mode than you are in the being mode. But we can get back to that. We know that people can come back to this freshness and this zest of youth even in later years. We know that from a very famous teaching from the Torah, a Mishnah, that says that when a person is young and they come to learn, their minds are sort of like clean parchment, right? And whatever you write on that parchment, it's clear, it stays. An older person who comes to learning, says the Mishnah, is like a smudged parchment. And what you put onto it, it's sort of, hard to see. It's mixed with a lot of sediment and, impurity that the parchment developed over the time. But here's the optimistic idea. Here's the hope. Here's the Emuna. The Mishnah teaches us through a very famous commentator named his name will come to me in a minute. So what he tells us is that if you come to learn, if an older person comes to learn with the attitude of a young person, you come with the zest, you come with the enthusiasm, you come with the belief that you can learn too, that you can also become spontaneous and automatic and full of life and full of zest, and that you don't have to be afraid to be yourself. You don't have to be afraid of rejection. And you certainly don't have to fit yourself in to a neurotic system and take your cues from, bend yourself like a pretzel to fit into a neurotic system anymore. You don't have to do that. Then an older person too can have a white, pure parchment, just like you're young, just like as if you were a brand new student sitting in the classroom for the first time, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, looking up at the blackboard, eager to learn, loving learning, wanting to know, wanting to possess knowledge and be able to utilize that knowledge. So that's a very positive way of looking at the Mishnah. Chiddushei Harim is the name of the commentator. The Chiddushei Harim gives us a very, very positive way of looking at that Mishnah. I want to thank you all for coming today. It's been a pleasure, as it always is, to speak to you every Wednesday from Yerushalayim HaKodesh, Jerusalem, the Holy City. And I want to remind you about our webinar series that goes every Sunday morning, 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. And you can still join. We only had one meeting so far, and it was recorded. You have a video recording of the first workshop. You can jump in and be with us for the next 9. So if you're interested, call from anywhere in the United States, 718-577-2975. That's 718-577-2975. Extension 1, 2 to 11 p.m. Israel time. Speak with Aaron. He'll sign you up on the spot. This is Rabbi Dr. Zev Ballin. It's a pleasure to be with you. Look forward to seeing you again soon. God bless.